This morning we continue our sermon series, Wounded by the Church. And this will be a very different type of sermon. It is a very specific type of wound, one that we are all too familiar with, and that is being offended. We live in a culture that is very easily offended. In fact, there was a recent article by the social psychologist Jonathan Haidt, H-A-I-D-T. Not a believer, but a very wise, nonpartisan voice in our culture. And wrote an article about why the last 10 years in America have been so stupid. It was the name of the article. And it was about social media. And his basic point was that social media, which is a brand new phenomena in the last roughly 10 years, maybe 12, we join our different cliques on our social media, and oftentimes we get more and more offended by those that are not on our team. And he's concerned for our country because it is increasing offendedness that is social media. Certainly it's not an innate evil, but we need to be careful about how we use it. So my first question to you this morning is this: what causes you to be offended? What causes you to be offended? Now, if you're like our lovely children this morning, everything just rolls right off there. And if that's the case, sermon's done. Let's go home. So all of us get offended. Our sense of morality or etiquette, or we get hurt because we have an expectation of other people. And our expectation may or may not be reasonable. For instance, I had a very, very unreasonable expectation in my early 20s when my best friend was making 5 times as much money as me. I had this very unreasonable expectation that whenever we would go out to lunch or dinner or whatever, that he would pay. He's making 5 times more. Why should I pay? He's doing exceedingly great, and he's my best friend. And I got offended. He doesn't know this to this day. Don't tell him. But really, obviously, as I look back on that 25 years ago, that was a sign of my own immaturity. It was a sign of my own being hurt, a false kind of expectation. And that offense that I took continually obviously did not help our friendship. Now, there's another thing that makes me really mad. And I've had to work on this. I get offended by these people. We're in the movie theater. It says right up there on the movie screen, please put your phones away. But people, like this person, they think they're the only one in the room, and they're looking at their phone, and the light is distracting, and we've just seen on the screen, please silence your phone, please put them away. And what are we to do? Should we sit there quiet? Well, I've had to work on this since what? 2003, 2004, 2005. That's when we became married to our cell phones. They go everywhere with us now. And so I understood in those early years. Okay, people are getting used to them. We have to learn how to be good etiquette with our new technology in new spaces. But eventually, this just stayed. It did not go away. And then, there's not only this person, there's this person. The movie itself is going, and this person in the movie theater is on the phone as if they're outside and don't have a care in the world. So, 2 quick stories on this. I was in a very remote part of the world, the island of Borneo. And you wouldn't believe it, but the movie theater was better than almost any movie theater here. It was amazing. There was hundreds of people. And someone was on their phone, not talking like they're in the library even, just like they're outside. And this went on for at least 5 minutes. And I was many rows away, and that was it. I got up. Where is the talking coming from? Oh, it's you. I stood over him. He's doesn't acknowledge me, just keeps talking. I just stand there getting more and more irate. And then I did this kind of a thing. Got his attention. Could you please get off the phone? We're in the movie theater. And he gave me one of these. Just give me a couple more minutes. Went back to my seat. And he finally got off. I don't even remember what movie I saw. What I remember, of course, is that incident. On another time, guy wasn't talking on the phone. It was all the light was emitting, and he was in my same row, and I said, could you please put your phone away? When the movie was over, and he came by me, he stopped. You want to go outside? What I wanted to say, but I didn't, was, what's outside? What I said was, he was a lot bigger than me. What I said was, no. And then he left. It was at that point that I realized that my taking offense at those people, maybe I should work on that. I really did not want to get into a physical altercation at some point. So, over the years, I have tried to not be offended by these things. There's a line in Seinfeld, and you're going to learn this about me. I am a Seinfeld nut. It's a TV show for those of you who don't know what Seinfeld is. It's a show about nothing from the 1990s. But there's one episode where one of the main characters, George Costanza, his father, he's getting offended by many things, and he practices a new technique to get rid of his offense. Any Seinfeld people know what I'm going to say? Yeah, I hear it. His new technique from his doctor was just say, serenity now. Serenity now. Serenity now, right? Try and calm down from whatever it was that makes you particularly offended. Again, for me, people on their phones in movie theaters, just hit the right button. So now, I don't literally say serenity now, but I do. In the movie theater, now, this is how I felt. It's helped me. Now I go all the way to the very back, into one of the corners, where I'm as far away, so that I'm the least able to be offended by people that might have their phones on. And I just breathe. I don't say anything anymore. I just enjoy the show. Serenity now. There's a book that came out. It is called Unoffendable. Unoffendable. And when I saw this book title, I was very offended. Because the point of the whole book, of course, is that you can become the kind of person that never takes offense. Can you imagine going the rest of your life never being offended again? Unoffendable. Christian book, he says this. He says, the basic point of the book is this: give up your right to be offended. In that movie theater, what are you going to do? Just give up your right. They're wrong. They're so wrong. But just give up that right, let it go, and you will be a happier person, basically. Let go of your offense. Being offended, he says, is tiring. Takes a lot out of you. Letting it go gives you energy. You could use that energy for other things. And then finally he says, you can be unoffendable. Now, I don't necessarily believe that. Like, you're going to go the rest of your life and never be offended again. But what a good goal. Harmony, unity, these things are good things. James 1:19, the verse I was quoting to our students who don't get offended, which is lovely, says this, my dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry. Why? Because human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires. I was watching a very funny clip. It's Comedy Morning. Maybe because I was in Jamestown and that's where the Comedy Museum is. But John Cleese, who's the front of Monty Python, obviously a very irreverent group. If you don't know who they are, maybe that's a good thing. If you know who they are, they're a very irreverent comedy group. And he has this 2-minute clip on YouTube about extremism, and it's a parody. It's one of the things that people don't tell you about the wonderfulness about extremism is it makes you feel good. Because when you are on the far left or the far right, you get a list of enemies. And then you can pretend to believe that all the bad in the world is on their side, and all the good in the world is on your side. And every day in our culture, if you choose to turn on your TV and watch various news programs, back and forth, there's a lot of offense. Both teams being offended by the other team, and it's a perpetual thing. Many of you, I believe, simply choose not to tune into that. And that's probably a very wise choice. Because righteousness does not bring about, anger does not bring about the righteousness that God desires. Quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry. That is the point. We're Christians now. Pastor Mark cannot get in fights in movie theaters. It's very bad. Very bad role model if that were to happen. Can you imagine being in the local movie theater and I'm in the back and you're somewhere in the front and I don't know it's you? And after this sermon, and you're on your phone and I say, put the phone away, and yell at you from the back, and then you turn around and I go, oh, wow, buddy. I'm going to have to preach another sermon about myself. That would not be good. The word offense that we have in English comes from the Greek word scandalon, from which we get the word scandal. Right? I felt scandalized by those people with their cell phones in the movie theater. I was offended. I stepped right on this trap whereby the anger got a hold of me. And then I forgot about the movie, the whole point of being in that room. Proverbs 18:19 puts it like this. An offended friend is harder to win back than a fortified city. That's a really strong piece of truth. An offended friend is harder to win back than a fortified city. Because our anger does not bring about the righteousness of God. Proverbs 19:11 says, a person's wisdom yields patience, the very thing I lacked in those movie theaters. It is to one's glory to overlook an offense. It is to one's glory to overlook an offense. Some of us love being offended. It gives us something to do. It makes us feel, like John Cleese said, it makes us feel good. But it is to one's glory to overlook an offense. Try it this week. This is your assignment, church. Someone somewhere is going to offend you. Maybe on the way to the parking lot. They're going to pull out and they don't wait for you. They see you, but they're going to pull right on out. And you could get offended. Maybe remember this verse. It is to one's glory to overlook an offense. That's your assignment for the week. Report back to me. Report back to the Lord, I suppose, first. 1 Corinthians 13, we all know the love passage. Love is patient, love is kind. It is not easily angered. Boy, that's something really to keep in mind, isn't it? Love is not easily angered. May we be more like that, more Christ-like like that. Jesus said, "Blessed is any person who does not take offense at me." Jesus offended lots and lots of people. There's another story where the disciples come to him and they say, "Jesus, you've offended the Pharisees." He offended a lot of people. People had expectations. Jesus didn't meet those expectations. Jesus said things that didn't make people's feelings feel good, right? Because he came with grace on the one hand, but with truth on the other. On another occasion, in Mark chapter 6, Jesus goes to his hometown, Nazareth. Jesus left, went to his hometown, that is Nazareth, accompanied by his disciples. When the Sabbath came, he began to teach in the synagogue, and many who heard him were amazed. And we think it means they're amazed at his teaching. But as we keep reading, we realize it's not that kind of amazement. Where did this man get these things, they asked. What's this wisdom that has been given to him? What are these remarkable miracles he's performing? Isn't this the carpenter? In other words, doesn't he have an ordinary job? Isn't this Mary's son? You would never, in that culture, call someone the son of their mother. You would always say, the son of their father. So what they were saying is, isn't this the illegitimate child? Ordinary job, illegitimate child. And don't we know his brothers? James, Judas, Simon? Aren't his sisters here? This is an ordinary man, and he's telling us all these things that we should be doing. And what did they do? They took offense at him. He did not meet their expectations. They took offense at him. Jesus goes on to say, both mics got to work, right? One's got to work. He goes on to say, a prophet is without honor in his hometown. Familiarity breeds contempt. Can you imagine if this was the first century and Jesus of Nazareth came to West Middlesex, preached Sunday morning sermon, and we all left here offended by the Messiah rather than more in love with, filled with rapturous delight for his coming. This is what happened. They did not recognize who he was. They took offense at him. Who's he? I grew up with him. I remember when he was riding his tricycle around Nazareth. And now he wants to tell me how to live my life? This is not the way. This is not the way, brothers and sisters. 1 Corinthians 1:23, Paul says, so when we preach that Christ was crucified, in other words, that the Messiah, the Lord himself, did not come as a conquering king, but as a crucified Messiah, the Jews get offended and the Gentiles say it's all nonsense. And again, that word, scandalon, or offense, literally means a stone in the middle of the road that you trip over. Because the Jews expected a great king. And then these Christians are saying, well, as it turns out, he was a suffering, crucified Messiah. And the Jews are like, what? They were offended. And so they, who took offense, missed out on the Messiah. Again, a visual for what it means to be offended. A stone in the middle of the path. Hebrews 12:15 warns us that when we get repeatedly offended, those repeated offenses can ultimately end up becoming bitterness. Watch out that no poisonous root of bitterness grows up to trouble you, corrupting many. Bitterness is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Bitterness is a horrible thing. Contaminates your soul. And it is usually the buildup of being offended many times without breaking free of that chain. There's only one prayer in all of Scripture where we hear the actual words of Jesus. Several times we read he went off to a lonely place to pray, or Jesus blessed this. But the only time we hear the words of the prayer of Jesus in Scripture is John 17. And what does Jesus choose to pray about? Of course, his followers. But what does he pray about us for? Of course, that we may know him. But the biggest theme is unity. Unity. Because what does offense bring between friends, between family members? How many of us have heard stories about so-and-so hasn't spoken to their mother in 20 years because they were offended by something she may have said? How many of us know people who haven't spoken to their brother in 35 years because of something he said 35 years ago that what? Offended me. And an offended person is harder to win back than a fortified castle. Because we take sides, and we withdraw, and we put up our defenses, and we say, you're wrong, I'm right. Jesus says, I'm against division, I'm for unity. Jesus prays that all of them may be one, Father, just as you are in me and I am in you. I have given them the glory that you gave me, that they may be one. As we are one, I and them, you and me, so that they may be brought to complete unity. We live in a very easily offended culture, and social media ain't helping. We know the Lord. We should be able to rise above the big word we've all been learning over the last however many years. We should be able to rise above as Christians. Can we choose not to be offended? Can we believe Proverbs that says it is to one's glory to overlook an offense? Try it this week. That person's driving too close behind you. Serenity now. Person's going too slow in front of you. It is to your glory to overlook that offense. Quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry. Quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry. Wow, if we can get those down, we could begin somewhere. How many
friendships, family members, church friendships could be improved if we could overlook slights or offenses. You didn't get invited to so-and-so's party. I'm sorry. It's a choice. You can choose to be offended in that particular situation, or you could choose to overlook that for the sake of the relationship.